My name is Kelsey Harper, and just a few months ago, I witnessed something that completely shattered the last bit of trust I had in my own family. I saw my older sister Bailey treated like an expendable extra, not by strangers, but by the very people who share her blood. The day of her engagement party should have been the brightest moment of her life. We had carefully reserved the best seats for our parents and my brother Logan. But as the party began, went on, and slowly neared its end, those chairs remained painfully empty. Weeks earlier, my mother had called Bailey, her tone calm to the point of cruelty. She said it was just a small gathering, nothing worth changing plans for. They had already booked a trip to the Maldives to celebrate what they called a major breakthrough in Logan's startup career. She even laughed softly as she said it, the kind of laugh that comes from someone who sees her daughter's happiness as something trivial, barely worth noticing. That night, Bailey kept smiling for the camera, wearing the dress she had chosen long ago with such care and meaning. She looked beautiful. She looked hopeful. And while she struggled to hold on to that smile, my phone buzzed. A new post from Logan. Blinding blue ocean. An infinity pool. Logan standing in the center, our parents on either side, drinks in hand, all of them beaming under the sun. The caption hit me like a cold blade to the stomach, finally celebrating a real family milestone with the people who truly matter. Not a single message, not a single call, not even a fake half-hearted congratulations. I thought nothing could be worse than that. I was wrong. A few weeks later, my father called Bailey. No greeting, no apology, no mention of the engagement party they had deliberately skipped. He went straight to the point, his voice firm, almost commanding. Logan needed more money to close his deal, and Bailey had to transfer it immediately. He spoke as if it were an obvious duty, as if she had been born solely to financially carry the family. Bailey wasn't a daughter. She was a breathing ATM. Bailey was almost completely silent during the call. She listened. She gave brief replies. And when she hung up, I saw that look in her eyes. No tears, no rage. What I saw was absolute cold clarity. A moment of awakening. She didn't cry. She didn't complain. She said only one sentence: "I'll handle it." What she did next was something none of them could have imagined. No drama. No confrontation, no warning. Just one quiet decision, calculated down to every detail, fully legal, airtight, and with no way back. Step by step, she pulled away the foundation our family had been standing on for years. Their smug confidence slowly turned into unease, then into fear, then into outright panic. By the time everything was over, the balance of power had completely shifted. The people who once treated Bailey as insignificant finally realized just how much they had depended on her. And the moment they realized it, it was already too late. But this story didn't begin with the engagement party. It didn't begin with the Maldives. It didn't begin with money. It began years earlier with a cruel pattern so familiar that no one ever questioned it until Bailey finally decided to end it. Before I tell you how it all began, and the single cold decision that changed everything, I want to ask you one thing. What time is it where you are right now, and where in the world are you watching from? Leave it in the comments. Please go live and subscribe to the channel so I have the motivation to keep writing powerful stories and continue with the next part. To understand why my sister was treated that way, I have to go back to where everything began: our childhood in a small town on the edge of Seattle, Washington. A place where rain fell almost year-round and where the rules of our family were never spoken aloud, but enforced through years of silence. On the surface, my family looked ordinary. Bruce Harper and Linda Harper, my father and mother, my older sister Bailey Harper, my brother Logan Harper, and me, Kelsey Harper, the youngest. We lived in a typical middle-class house with a backyard that backed into the woods, just a short drive from a nearby lake. Rain washed everything in cold shades of gray, but it was home. At least, that's what I believed at the time. From my earliest memories, I understood one thing clearly: our family's world revolved around Logan. He was the only boy, and that fact alone was enough to make everything else secondary. If Logan wanted something, it happened. No questions, no hesitation, no concern about cost or necessity. When Logan became interested in hockey, my dad immediately signed him up for the most expensive league in the area, private coaches, new equipment every season. Not a second thought. When Logan said he wanted to learn the drums, my mom took exactly 1 week to bring home a full drum kit, even though it swallowed half the garage and made the entire house shake whenever he played. Summer camps followed the same pattern: elite outdoor programs that cost thousands of dollars, with rock climbing, kayaking on the Sound, and glossy brochures promising to shape future leaders. Money always appeared when Logan needed it. Time bent itself around his schedule. Dinner waited for his practices. Weekends disappeared into tournaments. Every plan in the house had to move out of Logan's way. Bailey was different. She learned very early that those rules were not meant for her. She was the smartest person in the family, not loud or attention-seeking, but quietly relentless. She brought home perfect report cards, won science fairs, and taught herself things no one ever asked her to learn. She built complex projects out of scrap circuit boards salvaged from old radios, parts pulled from broken devices. Once, during a heavy Seattle rainstorm, our washing machine completely broke down. While my mom complained and my dad said he'd deal with it later, Bailey spent the entire weekend taking it apart. She used her allowance to order replacement parts, repaired the motor herself, and reassembled it piece by piece. After that, the machine ran better than it had in years. My mom barely looked at it. She said just 3 words: "That's fine." Then she immediately turned to Logan and asked how practice went and whether he needed new sticks. My dad wasn't any better. He would nod at Bailey's achievements, sometimes give her a token pat on the shoulder, then launch into a long monologue about Logan's latest game or how the boy was going to make something big of himself. Bailey's talent was acknowledged the way people acknowledge rain tapping against a window, always present, never truly heard. I watched everything from the sidelines. At first, I was too young to fully understand it, but old enough to feel the injustice growing inside that house. Bailey never complained. She never argued. She never begged for attention. She simply grew quieter, learned to manage on her own, learned how to move forward without asking permission or waiting for help. When she was accepted into an advanced math program in middle school, she told my mom about the acceptance letter at dinner. My mom skimmed it, set it aside, and turned to Logan to ask if he was ready for his weekend tournament. Bailey never mentioned it again. The house slowly became a museum dedicated to Logan, the living room shelves filled with his trophies, medals, and certificates, hockey plaques, music awards, summer camp honors, all polished and proudly displayed. Bailey's accomplishments stayed in her bedroom or were hidden away in drawers. Once she won a district-level science medal, a genuinely significant achievement with a formal ceremony. She came home glowing, holding the ribbon in her hand. My mom looked at it, smiled briefly, said, "Good job," and placed it on a side table already crowded with Logan's trophies. By the next morning, it had been moved aside to make room for his newest award. My dad talked constantly about how Logan would carry the family forward, whatever that was supposed to mean. Trips were planned around Logan's schedule. Meals waited for him. Conversations always circled back to his future. Bailey and I learned how to exist in the margins, doing chores without being asked, staying quiet when needed, turning ourselves into background noise. Bailey took on even more responsibility as time went on. She mowed the lawn while my dad sat in the bleachers cheering for Logan. She unclogged drains, fixed gutters, patched the roof during light rainstorms. One time my dad noticed the roof had stopped leaking and said just one word: useful. Useful. Not impressive. Not admirable. Not important. I watched that word sink into her, shaping her piece by piece. She stopped sharing her achievements. She stopped expecting anyone to notice. She learned that being quiet was safer than standing out. She built her own path silently with her own hands inside the empty spaces our family left behind. And even back then, long before the engagement party, before the money, before the betrayal, I could see it wearing her down. Not loudly, not all at once, but slowly, relentlessly, like Seattle rain eroding stone. Bailey never broke, but she hardened. And one day that quiet strength, the very thing they never bothered to recognize, would become the force they underestimated the most. That would be their fatal mistake. As we got older, that difference didn't fade, it sharpened. By the time we reached high school, it was impossible to ignore. Bailey moved through those years like someone who already understood the rules of survival. Straight A's came without ceremony. No bragging, no celebration dinners. She just did the work. While other kids waited for guidance counselors to hand them forms, Bailey sat at the kitchen table late at night, researching scholarships on her own, printing applications, filling them out line by line. She earned enough to cover most of nursing school at a state college not far from home, the kind of place people call practical when they don't want to say affordable. To cover what the scholarships didn't, she worked. Not casually, relentlessly. She took early morning shifts at a small coffee shop near Seattle, the kind that never slept, because commuters needed their lattes before sunrise. She'd wake up when it was still dark, pull on her uniform, and serve drinks to people half awake and already impatient. When her shift ended, she didn't go home to rest. She went straight to class. And when classes were over, she clocked in again, this time at a small community hospital, taking evening hours for hands-on experience and whatever extra pay they could spare. Mom and Dad never offered to help with tuition, not with books, not with fees. Instead, their money flowed easily in another direction. Logan. They paid for him to attend a better private high school across town, one with strong sports programs and better connections. When he turned 16 and passed his driver's test, they bought him a used pickup truck so he wouldn't have to rely on rides to practice. Gas money appeared whenever he needed it. Insurance was covered without discussion. Even upgrades, better tires, repairs somehow always worked their way into the budget. Bailey never complained. Not once. She didn't argue or keep score. She just worked harder. She saved what she could and built her resume with those hospital shifts, learning fast, earning quiet respect. That's where she met Connor Reed, a young resident doctor overseeing parts of the training program. He was different from the others. Calm, patient. He didn't talk down to students or dismiss their ideas. When Bailey suggested better ways to organize charts or manage supplies, he listened. Actually listened. Their connection didn't explode into anything dramatic. It started small. Coffee after long shifts. Conversations about difficult cases. Jokes about the endless Seattle drizzle that soaked through everything. No grand gestures. Just shared exhaustion, shared purpose, and the rare feeling of being seen. Slowly, something solid formed, built on late nights and honesty instead of flash. I started college a few years after Bailey, staying closer to home. By then, another pattern had already taken root. Whenever Mom or Dad called with an emergency, Bailey sent money. A roof leak after heavy rains common in our area. An unexpected bill. Something always urgent. She'd transfer what she could from her part-time earnings, telling herself it was temporary, that it helped everyone. She mentioned it to me casually at first, like it was nothing, but I noticed where the money ended up. Somehow, it always circled back to Logan. A new phone when his broke during a game, fees for an extra tournament, later help with his community college costs. Mom and Dad accepted it without much gratitude, never asking how Bailey was surviving on her own, how many hours she worked, or how little she slept. It made my blood boil. More than it ever seemed to bother her. I'd vent to my best friend Taylor Vaughn, someone I met freshman year. Taylor was blunt in the way only good friends are. She listened, then said what I was thinking, but didn't want to admit that Bailey was quietly supporting everyone while being treated like an endless resource. When I brought it up to Bailey, she brushed it off. She said, "That's just what you do for family." She said she was fine. She had schoolwork and Connor. Her life was moving forward. But I saw the cost. Those transfers added up. Bailey skipped trips with friends, ate cheap meals between shifts, put off anything that felt like indulgence just to send a few $100s when asked. Connor noticed too. He never pushed, but he gently suggested boundaries, reminding her that generosity shouldn't mean self-erasure. She wasn't ready to hear it yet. She believed strength meant handling everything alone. And she did. By the time she graduated and landed a solid nursing job at a larger hospital, the habit was set. She had built stability from nothing, skills no one had paid for, resilience no one had rewarded. She had a career earned through exhaustion and discipline, and a relationship with Connor that felt real because it grew in the cracks, not the spotlight. I admired her deeply. I still do. But admiration doesn't erase the ache of watching someone give endlessly to people who never learned to give back. Bailey became strong because she had to. And while everyone else benefited from that strength, she paid for it quietly, one sacrifice at a time. And that, though none of us admitted it yet, was only the beginning. My sister Bailey's life changed when she and Connor decided to get engaged about 2 years ago. Bailey was genuinely excited in a way I hadn't seen in years. She talked about building a future with someone who actually saw her effort and valued her opinions. They kept the proposal simple. One evening, after a shift, Connor asked her during a quiet walk by the water. She said yes, without hesitation. Pretty soon they started planning a small engagement party. Nothing extravagant, just a cozy gathering for close friends and family at a venue near Connor's place in the Seattle area. It had a nice view of the lake, outdoor heaters for the cooler evenings, and local seafood on the menu, grilled salmon, crab cakes, things that felt right for the Pacific Northwest. Bailey threw herself into the details. She designed the invitations herself on her computer, choosing simple but elegant cards with a photo of them together. She spent late nights tweaking fonts and layouts until they felt perfect. For the first time in a long while, she let herself hope that our family would show up and share the happiness. She told me she wanted Mom, Dad, and Logan there, even if things had always been uneven. I helped where I could, addressing envelopes, suggesting playlist songs, running errands for decorations. We mailed the invitations, early handwritten notes inside for our parents and brother, and followed up with phone calls to make sure they got them. Weeks passed with no real response. Bailey checked her phone less as the date approached, but I could tell she was still holding out. Then Mom called one afternoon while Bailey was at work. I wasn't on the line, but Bailey told me about it later, recounting it almost word for word, because it stung that much. Mom didn't open with congratulations. She launched right into how they'd already committed to a big trip, flights and resort booked for the Maldives. It wasn't just a vacation. It was to celebrate Logan's latest project, some small online business he was trying to launch. She called it his real shot at making it something the whole family needed to support in person. When Bailey mentioned the party date and asked if they could work around it, Mom brushed it off. She said something along the lines of, "A little party like that. It's basically a waste of money, honey. So small it's hardly worth calling an event." She laughed lightly, like it was obvious, and added that they couldn't possibly rearrange everything for something so minor. Bailey stayed calm on the call. She thanked Mom for letting her know, said she understood, and hung up. But when she got home that evening, her voice was quieter than usual. She told Connor about it first. He listened without interrupting, then pulled her into a hug. Later, she filled me in, downplaying the hurt but not quite hiding it. She could have scaled back or postponed, but Bailey decided not to let it derail the day she and Connor wanted. She said the party was for the people who actually wanted to celebrate with them, not for anyone who saw it as insignificant. We kept moving forward with the plans, finalizing the guest list, confirming the caterer, setting up string lights for the evening. Connor's family stepped up without being asked, offering to help with setup and hosting duties. They were excited in a way that felt foreign to us, genuinely looking forward to welcoming Bailey. It gave her something solid to focus on amid the disappointment. Still in the days leading up, Bailey admitted to me that part of her had pictured our parents there, maybe even Logan offering a toast. She knew it was unlikely, but the hope had lingered anyway. By the time the invitation's RSVP deadline passed, we knew they weren't coming. Bailey didn't bring it up again. She just kept preparing, determined not to let their choice overshadow what was supposed to be a happy milestone. The day of the engagement party finally arrived with a warm atmosphere as friends and Connor's family filled the space. We had chosen an outdoor spot right by the lake, the kind typical for Seattle gatherings, even when the weather wasn't perfect. A light drizzle fell most of the afternoon, but the tents and heaters kept everyone dry and comfortable. The menu featured grilled items, salmon steaks, burgers, vegetable skewers, and plenty of sides that people passed around while laughing and sharing stories. Connor's relatives showed up in full force. His parents, siblings, aunts, and uncles all came early to help set up tables and string lights. They greeted Bailey with tight hugs and genuine smiles, pulling her into conversations like she had always belonged. Friends from work and college mingled easily, toasting the couple with local craft beer and wine. Music played softly in the background, and people took photos against the misty lake view. Bailey moved through it all with a smile that looked real from a distance. She posed for pictures with Connor, cut the small celebration cake, and thanked everyone for coming. But I noticed the moments she thought no one was watching. She'd glance toward the empty seats we had reserved near the front, the ones clearly marked for our side of the family. Those chairs stayed unoccupied the entire time. No last-minute arrival, no text explaining traffic or delays, just open space that stood out more as the evening went on. The party wrapped up as the rain picked up again. Guests said their goodbyes, promising to stay in touch for wedding planning. Bailey and Connor stood at the entrance, thanking people one by one, arms around each other. Once the last car pulled away, cleanup started, folding chairs, packing leftovers, taking down decorations. That's when my phone started lighting up with notifications. I was stacking plates when I saw the first story from Logan. Bright sunshine turquoise water, him lounging by a resort pool. Another story followed a group shot with mom and dad, all three raising glasses. Then the main post appeared, a professional-looking photo of them on the beach at sunset, dressed in resort wear, huge smiles. The caption read something like, "Celebrating a real family milestone with the people who count the most." I felt heat rush to my face. The timing couldn't have been worse, posted right as our party ended. I scrolled through the comments, already rolling in from mutual friends liking and congratulating them. I didn't want to ruin the night for Bailey, but I knew she'd see it eventually. When we had a quiet moment loading the car, I handed her my phone. She took it, read the caption, studied the photo for a long second. Her expression didn't change much, just a slight tightening around her eyes. She handed the phone back without a word and walked to the edge of the parking area, away from Connor and the few helpers still around. I followed at a distance. She stood there facing the dark lake, shoulders steady at first, then shaking just enough that I knew she was crying quietly. She wiped her face quickly when she heard footsteps turning back, with the same composed look she'd worn all day. Connor noticed something was off, but didn't push in front of others. He just stayed close, helping pack up in silence. Bailey kept moving, directing where boxes went, making sure nothing was left behind. No one mentioned the posts out loud that night. We finished cleaning, drove home through the rain, and called it an early end to a long day. But the images from Logan's feed lingered, making the empty seats feel even heavier in retrospect. Bailey didn't break down in front of anyone. She held it together until she was alone, processing the message loud and clear. Her moment didn't rate compared to whatever they were doing halfway around the world. A few weeks after the party, when Bailey was trying to put it all behind her, the phone rang. It was Dad. Bailey put it on speaker so Connor could hear if he wanted, but he stepped out to give her space. Dad didn't waste time on greetings. He launched straight in, voice raised like she had already argued back. Logan had a deal almost closed, an online business selling custom outdoor gear, something he'd been building for months. Investors were interested, but he needed a final chunk of cash right now to lock it in. Dad rattled off the amount, a lot higher than any previous ask. Bailey tried to get a word in, asking for details on the deal or why it was so urgent. Dad cut her off. "You've sent money before, no problem. This is bigger, so just contribute more. Family needs this." He made it sound routine, like she was an account they could draw from whenever. No apology for missing the party, no question about how she was doing after everything. Nothing about the trip they'd prioritized instead. Bailey's grip tightened on the phone. She asked why the number was so much larger this time. Dad brushed it off. "Opportunities like this. Don't wait, Logan had real potential, this could set him up for good." He repeated that she'd always helped before. So why hesitate now? She reminded him quietly that those earlier transfers were for emergencies, smaller amounts she could manage. This felt different. Dad's tone sharpened. He said family steps up when someone's on the verge of success, and Logan deserved the support to make it happen. Connor came back in midway and caught the tension. He sat nearby, not interrupting, but watching Bailey's face. She stayed composed, asking for time to look over her budget. Dad pushed harder, saying delay could cost the whole deal. "We're counting on you. Don't let us down." The call ended with Bailey promising to think about it, though her voice had gone flat. She set the phone down and stared at it for a long moment. Connor asked if she was okay. She nodded at first, then admitted the amount threw her. It wasn't just the size, it was how automatic Dad assumed her yes would be. Like her role was always to provide when Logan needed a boost. "I heard about the call later that evening when Bailey texted me." She laid out what Dad said word for word as best she remembered. It hit me how little had changed. Even after skipping her celebration and broadcasting their choice online, they circled back to her for money without a second thought. Bailey started questioning things out loud for the first time. Why was it always her they called? Why did Logan's plans take priority every single time? The request didn't sit right, especially the scale of it. She pulled up her banking app that night, scrolling through old transactions to see the pattern herself. Connor sat with her, offering to help review numbers if she wanted. Something in her expression shifted from confusion to quiet suspicion. The call left a bad taste that lingered. Bailey went to work the next days on autopilot, replaying Dad's words during breaks. She told Connor she felt used in a way she hadn't fully admitted before. "I checked in with her often those weeks." She sounded tired, but determined not to let it pull her down completely. Still, the unease grew. The money ask wasn't just another favor, it felt like the tipping point of years of one-sided giving. The morning after the call, Bailey sat down at the kitchen table with her laptop and a stack of bank statements. She started with the joint savings account she had contributed to over the years, one originally set up for family emergencies. Then she pulled up records for the secondary card she had added her parents to long ago, strictly for real crises like major home repairs during heavy storms. At first, she just scanned recent activity. A few small charges looked familiar, things she remembered approving. But as she went back further, larger withdrawals jumped out. Transfers in amounts she never authorized, totaling tens of thousands of dollars over the past several months. She cross-checked dates against her own calendar. Several big ones lined up with booking windows for luxury travel. Others matched times when Logan had mentioned needing quick cash infusions for his business setup, servers, marketing, inventory samples. Connor brought her coffee but stayed quiet, sensing she needed space. Bailey clicked deeper into transaction details. Charges for high-end resort deposits, international flights, even premium add-ons that screamed Maldives. More entries showed direct transfers to accounts linked to Logan's venture. None of it had her approval. She had never logged in to okay those amounts, never signed off on over-limit draws. Her breathing stayed even, but her focus sharpened. She opened new tab's bank fraud department page, online reporting forms, local police non-emergency portal. She called the bank first, speaking calmly to the representative. Explained the unauthorized activity, provided account numbers, answered security questions. They flagged it, immediately promised a hold on further transactions, and started an investigation. Next came the official report. She filled out the police form online detailing the dates, amounts, and suspected use. Uploaded screenshots of statements as evidence. Submitted without hesitation. Connor watched from across the table. He asked if she wanted him to sit in or make calls for her. She shook her head, said she had it handled. Throughout the process, she didn't raise her voice, didn't pace or vent. Just methodical steps, one after another. The kind of calm that comes when something finally clicks into place. I found out pieces of it later when she told me over a quiet lunch. She described spotting the patterns, realizing how far it went, deciding right then that involving them first wasn't an option. No confrontation yet, no heads-up text or call. She filed everything discreetly, letting the institutions handle the next moves. That was the secret part. No one in the family knew she had already acted. The bank confirmed receipt by email, noting potential freezes and credit monitoring. Police assigned a case number for identity theft and unauthorized use. Bailey closed the laptop after the last submission. She looked steadier than she had in weeks, like a weight shifted from confusion to control. Connor supported whatever she chose next. They talked practicalities, separating accounts, fully changing access, protecting her credit. But the reports were already in motion. She didn't celebrate or rage, just moved forward with a clarity that felt new. The betrayal was clear, now laid out in black and white numbers. And she had taken the first irreversible steps without warning anyone who caused it. A week after the bank confirmed the investigation, Bailey sent a simple message: family video call tonight. No explanation. Everyone logged on. Mom, Dad, Logan. Bailey had Connor right beside her, his hand on her shoulder. I joined from my own screen, heart pounding but ready. The second all cameras connected, you could feel the tension. No small talk. Bailey looked straight into the lens and started, voice steady and ice cold. I reported the unauthorized transactions to the bank and the police as fraud. The accounts are frozen. Penalties have already hit the authorized users, you too. Your credit scores are tanking as we speak. She paused just long enough for it to sink in. The money trail leads straight to the Maldives resort and Logan's business expenses. It's all documented. The authorities are taking it from here. Dad's face flushed dark red. He leaned forward, voice booming. This is insane. We only borrowed it temporarily. Logan was about to close the deal. We were going to pay it all back. Mom cut in, frantic, eyes wide. Bailey, honey, it was for family. A misunderstanding. That's all. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Logan sat back, arms crossed, looking away at first. Then he muttered low but clear enough. You're being selfish. Ruining everything over nothing. Bailey didn't flinch. She waited until the noise died down, then spoke again, every word deliberate. I'm done. Done funding anyone's dreams but my own. Done being the backup plan you call when you need cash. Done with the relationship exactly as it is. She looked at each of them in turn. From now on, the boundary is permanent. No money, no contact. Unless you can show genuine respect and real accountability, we're finished. I jumped in right away. I'm 100% with Bailey on this. Count me out too. Dad started yelling again, Mom pleading, Logan throwing out a few more bitter words about betrayal. Bailey didn't argue back. She just said, we're done here, and ended the call. Screens went black. Within minutes, we both blocked their numbers, their social media, every possible way in. No drama-filled texts, no second chances. Just silence. Over the next months, pieces of the fallout trickled back through distant relatives and old mutual friends. Mom and Dad's credit took a devastating hit. They couldn't refinance the house when rates dropped. When their car finally died, no lender would touch them for a new loan. Bills stacked up, and for the first time they felt the squeeze without a safety net to tap. Logan's big deal collapsed almost overnight. Without the disputed funds cleared, he couldn't show proof of financial backing. Investors walked. The whole project died. He scrambled for jobs, taking whatever short-term work he could find, nothing close to the lifestyle he'd been banking on. They tried reaching out voicemails. We never listened to messages through cousins, even showing up unannounced once. We stayed firm. Doors stayed closed. Bailey and Connor moved forward, planning a wedding that was truly theirs, surrounded by people who actually showed up. Life without the constant drain felt lighter, freer. I stayed tight with her, leaning on Taylor for the everyday stuff, building circles that choose you back. Looking back now, the hurt was deep, but the clarity that followed was worth it. Blood doesn't make someone family. Real family chooses respect every single day. They show up when it matters, not just when they need something. And self-respect. That's non-negotiable. Sometimes the strongest, most empowering thing you can do is close the door on people who never learn to treat you like you belong on the other side of it.